car park, thank you, opposite the Tesco's. Please ensure that any mobile devices are either switched off or onto silent. And we are live streaming this event. Some members are able to join us virtually, and it's also on the council's YouTube channel. Lisa, do we have any apologies?
Chairman, I have no apologies.
Thank you. And then we have minutes before us for our meeting from the 18th of October. I would like to formally propose. Do we have a seconder?
Happy to second.
All those in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Colleagues, we now move on to declarations of interest. Are there any pecuniary or non-pecuniary, either for elected members or officers who may wish to declare a pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest?
Nobody's indicated from either your physical or your virtual room, Chair.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Foster.
I'm not quite sure, standing tall, I do attend a lot of meetings, so I don't know whether I need to declare that.
Right, okay.
Okay, so
Domestic violence,
okay, but so there's no decisions being made today. So
Right, so, colleague, yep, thank you. So we now move on to what we often have at cabinet meetings, which is a presentation from one of our key partners. And so I'm very pleased to welcome Angie Manning from What's Your Problem? And would you be kind enough to unpack your world for us this afternoon?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much for inviting me today. I am the director of What's Your Problem. What's Your Problem currently leads the Standing Tall Partnership, and it's the Standing Tall Partnership that I'm really here to talk to you about today. We have only got a few minutes, so it is a bit of a sort of whistle-stop tour, really, of everything that's happening, and I'd love an opportunity to tell you more at a later date. But for now, I've just prepared a short presentation that I think everyone can see. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So Standing Tall is the Torbay Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence Community and Voluntary Sector Partnership. What that essentially means is that charities, CICs and community groups are working together to support people as a partnership, as we feel like we can better support them in that way by working together as opposed to working in silos, which historically has been the way that we've done things. So the Standing Tall partners, a lot of the names you'll recognise. For example, Youth Genesis Trust, the Children's Society, Ladies Lounge, What's Your Problem, my organisation that I mentioned earlier, Health Watch Torbay, Torbay Community Development Trust, and Eat That Frog are all organisations that are working in Torbay. And you'll see that there's a lot of organisations there who have a lot of experience when supporting people, and that enables us to really tailor support around people that are referred into us for support. So we've recently had a number of engagement events, and Hazel mentioned she's attended some of those, where we're looking to really design the service with the people that we're hoping to support, and they helped us define our vision, mission and values. I won't read them all out to you, but I'll just highlight some of the key points that I'd like to make. So our vision is to stop domestic abuse and sexual violence for all people, families and communities. Our mission is to reduce the harm that's caused to people and to provide education and interventions helping people who use harmful behaviours to have healthy relationships. And one of the key parts of our mission really is to be stronger together and amplify the voice of the people that we're supporting. And being invited to events like this enables us to come along and do that and promote some system and cultural change. In terms of our values, again, I won't read them all out, but working in an innovative and dynamic way to create positive change is something that I think we have already demonstrated, and also being person-centred and people-led. So you might ask how we help people, and we recognise that asking for help can be extremely difficult. So we've created a process where people can just ask for help once from any of those organisations within the partnership, or by making a call to the Torbay Community Helpline, or by being referred in to one of the professionals that they may already have a relationship with, such as a social prescriber or a social worker. And from that one request for help, we then have one conversation with that person to really understand what's happening for them and what support they'd like to access. And then we can tailor that support and bring it to them. And it avoids them needing to ring round all of those organisations that I highlighted earlier to ask for help repeatedly and to tell their story more than once, which can be traumatising for people. So the support that we're providing, we provide emotional support, counselling for adults and for children, family interventions, and then some practical support with things like housing and benefits, access to free legal advice, help people with the court process if they're going through the court process. Without a lawyer, that can be very daunting, so we can provide support with that process, as well as other things like food, help with moving, storage of furniture, and pet fostering. And I think because we've got such a varied partnership, that enables us to provide lots of different types of support. And as I've said, you know, we can tailor that really around what support it is that people need and want to access. So far this year, so this is since we received some bridge funding from Torbay Council, we've received 303 requests for help. So that's just from March. And there's an overview there which explains the type of support that people are asking us for. So you can see overwhelmingly people are asking for counselling, people are wanting emotional support, so not necessarily a therapeutic intervention, but someone to talk to, someone to check in with them, someone they can let know how they're feeling and how things are for them in that moment of time. And also practical support around housing, benefits, legal advice, and court proceedings. And again, 129 people have been referred to us to access some sort of recovery programme, which tells us that people are wanting to move on and they're wanting support to move on from their experiences. So why are we doing this? So in our first 2 years, we supported 569 people. So that doesn't include the 303 requests I just mentioned. So we know that there is a huge need for the types of support that we're able to provide. We know from your whole system review that 6,430 people are likely to experience domestic abuse in Torbay each year. 68% of those people are female, 32% male. So overwhelmingly, you can see why people are accessing support from community and voluntary sector. There's some helpful information there that more than 20,000 people, it's estimated, will have experienced abuse in Torbay since the age of 16. And of the 6,430 people I was talking about earlier, 1,080 of those will be young people aged just 16 to 24. 1,690 will be over the age of 60. So the way in which we help is by, as I've said, tailoring a range of support for people. It's being led by them as to what support they'd like to access. And then there are other things that we're also doing as well, which is offering support to report. So over 16 days of action, we'll be offering an opportunity for people to come in and talk about what would happen if they reported abuse, what could they expect, and what support is available to enable them to do that. By bringing support to people, so being out in the community, talking to people and letting them know about the services that are available, by raising awareness. So we've created some videos to help highlight the support that is available for people. We've also worked with some young people around healthy relationships video. They created that video for their peer group. And we've also just started working with some primary school children around healthy relationships and who they would talk to if they needed some support. We also reduce some pressure on some of the other services by being able to respond really quickly to people when they're asking us for support, and there will be savings to be made in relation to that. But today I'd really rather focus on the human cost and the way in which we're able to support people with the experiences that they're going through. And we've also secured some funding for development. So really pleased to tell you that we were successful in applying to the National Lottery Reaching Communities Fund. They've now funded us to develop the partnership with people that we're supporting, so we can be sure that what we're providing is actually what they want to access and in the way that they want to access it. And we've also got some funding from the Tudor Trust, which is a 3-year commitment again to develop the partnership, which is really good news. So just finally, I just wanted to say thank you for your support. So we've been really well supported by Safer Communities at Torbay Council, who've provided support and guidance. We also had the bridge funding from you in March of 22, which enabled us to keep our referrals open. That was at a moment where we were considering whether we needed to close referrals, and we didn't, thanks to that bridge funding. That's enabled those 303 requests for help to be received. Some of our awareness videos have been promoted by Torbay Council, and some of our information is on your Are You OK website. So wanted to say thank you. But actually, we also need some additional support going forward. It would be great if those things could continue. So one of the issues that's been raised is whether Standing Tall needs its own website. And one of the discussions we had is the Are You OK website that you host has a lot of really helpful information. What we don't want to do is create another resource with a lot of helpful information. So actually, if we were able to provide some information through Are You OK, that would be really helpful. Again, we really value the support from Safer Communities. We'd like that to continue. Hazel's also attended some of our events, and that's been very helpful as well. So we just ask you to continue, really, to support our vision and our mission. Whilst we're developing the partnership, we are in need of core funds. Currently have 90 people on our waiting list for counselling. That doesn't feel right. So we're asking whether you can devote maybe some resource to supporting us while we carry on developing the partnership. That will hopefully lead to some long-term funding. We're also looking for some central space in Torbay. So a lot of the organisations, we have our own spaces across Torbay, but actually it'd be great to have a central space where people know that they can drop in and ask for support, and a commitment really that people who've experienced domestic abuse and sexual violence won't have to wait for support in Torbay. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie, for really enlightening, and it is very sobering to think that that the capacity of Torquay United is 6,500, and that's the number of people who suffer domestic abuse every year, was something I will take away and reflect on. And I'd also like to reflect that I'm sure that we saw one of your videos this afternoon at an Ageing Well event where a couple of us from the council attended, and it's really important that that coercive, controlling behaviour is seen as part of that bigger picture of abuse, because sometimes it just becomes the norm in some relationships, and that needs to be drawn out, that it is inappropriate and needs to be appropriately challenged, and having those opportunities of having these conversations around this is so important. So thank you for giving up your time to share with us your world this evening. Colleagues, do we have any questions from around the table?
You have Councillor Long and Councillor Stockman with their hands raised.
In that order. Swithin?
Thanks very much. I used to work for the AGK National Advice Line, which is based in Ashburton, of all places, and I know that there's a dearth of places in South Devon that people can access legal advice, which isn't prohibitively expensive. So I was interested to hear that you do provide legal advice. I just wanted to know a bit more about that, if that was possible, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So What's Your Problem was founded in 2015, so that's my organisation. Predominantly it's around access to justice. So what we've done since that time is develop a number of different options really for people. So one of them is what we call our Access Day, which is essentially where people can come and talk to a barrister about their situation and what options they have that's available to them. The other way in which we support people is by helping them to access legal aid. So it might be that some people would contact What's Your Problem or be referred through Standing Tall and not really know that legal aid is available. And it may be that they need some support to make that application. It can feel quite overwhelming, you know, providing lots of bank statements and things like that. So we provide a lot of practical support around that. And then, of course, we do go to court with people where they're not represented, or they are represented but would like some emotional support. And that's something that, you know, we've been doing for 7 years. And in the last 2 years, I'd say, so What's Your Problem supported more than 2,000 people. So access to justice is a huge issue. I think actually wider than Torbay, but in Torbay certainly we've been working really hard to help people to access legal advice or legal representation.
Thank you. First of all, Angie, thank you very much for the work that you do. It's obviously very much needed. Interesting to hear, I mean, I'd heard of it before, but the healthy relationships for boys and girls to actually grow up knowing what's acceptable and not. How many people do you think access your services prior to actual either domestic or sexual abuse taking place? And is there sufficient capacity within the system to deal with them early on before it's actually happened?
Just so I'm clear, so you're asking about the potential for early intervention?
Yes.
Is that, yeah. Okay. So I think those are the right spaces to be having those conversations. So I think schools, colleges, I think spreading the message as far and wide as we can to anybody who will listen, really, because one of the things we've learned from talking to people is that they might go to a trusted friend first. So if a trusted friend knows about where the support might be available, then I think that's really beneficial. So it's getting as many people involved in the conversation and to understand what support there is available. In terms of how many people come to us before experiencing abuse, is that what you mean? I think it depends on what other areas of support they might be accessing. So I think if you think about the community helpline, for example, people could be contacting the community helpline because they have a food need or a housing need. And again, you know, that's a great place to start building relationships and sharing information and education for anybody who wants to know more, whether it's something they're directly experiencing or something they just like to know more about.
Do you have, you know, at one time you would go all sorts of different places and ladies' toilets and sort of, and you'd see, you know, all of this, you know, domestic and sexual abuse leaflets of where they can contact you. I haven't seen it so much recently, so can you tell me what's happening with that to get the message out there?
Yeah, of course. It might be TDAS, which is our commissioned domestic abuse service. I know that they've got those great leaflets with the tear-off information on there. And I'm not quite sure. I think that's still absolutely still happening. I've certainly got some of their leaflets that I'm sharing. But in terms of Standing Tall, we have got, now we've got a new leaflet that we've used. Today we had an engagement event and we took it to that engagement event. But we've been out, we've been to Aging Well, we've been to some of the schools to talk to families. But it is really about getting out there and having as many of those conversations as we can. And this is really helpful. And also the face-to-face events that have been happening now that things have reopened and we're able to be face-to-face again, that's really great. I think during the pandemic we largely focused on social media and getting videos out so that we couldn't hand out leaflets, but I think now that we're back to being in a room together, then I think leaflets absolutely will be sharing them as much as we can do. We're going to be in libraries the 29th, 30th and 1st of December in libraries across Torbay, and there'll be leaflets and things there as well. And I'm happy to drop some off.
Got Councillor Foster, and then we'll move on after we've heard from Councillor Foster and had a response. Please do come in, Hazel.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment, just to say I fully support the work that's been going on. What's especially good is the partnership. It's all different organisations who are coming together and to share ideas and to discuss what's working well and what isn't. So it's really brilliant. And I'll just give an example. This week it's Children's Week. And this morning I've shadowed a social worker, and it is unfortunately a lot of cases with children that do come to the attention of social services, that somewhere either currently or in the past there has been cases of domestic violence or abuse within that family. So it is something that can touch anybody anywhere, and so I just fully support the work that they've been doing. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll take that as more of a statement than a question. So, yeah. So, Angie, I don't know if there's any comments that you've got to make on that.
No, just thank you very much for inviting me, and happy to meet with any or all of you to continue talking about it. There's a lot more that I could share.
Well, thank you for giving up some of your evening. It's really appreciated, because it is really useful for us at Cabinet to hear from the horse's mouth from time to time, and it's been really helpful. And do feel free, if you're welcome to stay, but feel free to go if you wish. And thank you for your time again. So, colleagues, we now move on to other announcements, communications, should I say. So there was a record decision that I think has been published, Lisa, in respect of appointment to the Great South West panel, which I've been appointed on behalf of the local authority. I really believe that the Great South West has legs as far as a body to represent the South West and to drive economic change, where we can work closely with partners on that. Carl Tucker, the chair of that from Yo Valley, the yoghurt and much more makers, is very outstanding, and I'm looking forward to us being able to drive positively on that agenda. It is Children in Need this week, and I would like to thank Councillor Stockman for being a rainbow for us this evening. I understand that other councillors were, but they were allergic to rainbowness, and I'm sure others are wearing rainbow underwear or something. But do feel free. My nod towards it is my Pink Panther tie. So at least we didn't go for full-blown this time and me wearing a wig and coming in as a pirate. So do feel there is a box by the door. It's not to take money out of, please. It's to put money in. What are the recommended? It was £50 notes, wasn't it, Cordelia?
It's definitely, and those pink ones with a 5 and a 0, that's the ones, definitely. That's why you wore the Pink Panther ties, Steve.
Clearly so. But I think £5 or £10 would be really welcome if we're able to make some money towards this really worthwhile cause. And then I understand that Councillor Chris Carter has been stalking the streets last night.
Yeah, it felt a bit like that, actually. No, we were out from midnight till about nearly 4 o'clock in the morning, doing a rough sleeper count. It's a national thing that we do annually, and the government tell us when we can do it, and it was this week, and the weather was just absolutely appalling. We were soaked to the skin, but there was a lot of us. There was about 5 teams out there in cars, and 2 of them, unfortunately, walking the streets as well. So we were in the cars, but we had to keep getting in and out, which wasn't great. It was very muddy and slippery and very, very wet. So we had more trouble trying to find the rough sleepers, because of course they were finding the dry places, and that was really difficult. But it was really really heart-rending seeing some of them and hearing what they had to say, because they couldn't sleep. Some of them were in tents, and the noise of the rain was just stopping them from sleeping. So we didn't wake anybody up deliberately. We didn't go and wake them. But we had to put the numbers in and give them in to the government, and the government figure comes out in January, and they come out with the figures for the whole country, because the whole country is doing it this week. But on the South Devon, we all do it on the same day, because some of our rough sleepers are a bit transient, so they go over the border, say, to Newton Abbot or Exeter or Plymouth. Some of them just move around, and so we could count them one night in Torbay and then the next night in Newton Abbot. So we try to do it all on the same night so we get more of an accurate figure.
Thank you, Chris. And I understand, I had a little bit of feedback, and I understand in Torquay Town Centre there were a dozen rough sleepers, and I'm left with the impression that the figures were probably higher than in previous years, which is of concern. Any other hands raised, Lisa, from anyone else around the table?
No, Chair.
No, thank you. So we now move on to urgent items. We have one urgent item that Councillor Morey, would you like to share this item with us, please?
Thank you, Chair. This report and recommendation is brought forward with the intention to speed up the process regarding the allocation of the Community Infrastructure Fund levy fund, and in particular those sites has been identified in the recommendation. May I add at this point, Chair, that we do have David Edmondson in the room if he wants to add to whatever I say. At its meeting on the 11th of August 2020, the Cabinet agreed to a standalone bidding process which would be introduced to determine what local projects the SIL neighbourhood proportions should be spent on. The Cabinet established the SIL Spend Board, and its operations would be the responsibility of Torbay Council, but would include representatives of the neighbourhood forums, community partnership, plural, local members, and the Cabinet Member for Infrastructure, Environment and Culture. During the course of last year, bids have been received by the Torquay Neighbourhood Forum on behalf of the community partnerships that have been discussed by the Forum Steering Group before submission to the Council. However, the administration of the board has proved to be very cumbersome and overly complicated, resulting in a number of bids being undetermined. Therefore, the Cabinet is requested to rescind the previous decision in this regard, determine the bids that have been submitted in order that they can be progressed, and to seek to implement a more streamlined process. As I said, we have David in the room, so if he wants to add to this, more than happy. But there is no need for me to read out the recommendations, Chair, as it's printed on page 3 of the report. So I move.
Thank you. Thank you for moving that, Councillor Morey, and I, from the Chair, will very happily second. I would share with colleagues that Councillor Cowell and I regularly attend the Torquay Forum, and these bids have been sat there waiting to be dealt with for some time. I think it's important that we get the decks cleared and process the bids that are that have been given approval by appropriate forums across the Bay, and Torquay are the ones on the table before us. I understand there are no others elsewhere in Torbay. And then what we're planning to do is come December, Dave Edmondson will have a further proposal as far as how we can put SIL money to good use in Torbay, and how that appropriate process for that, which will make sure that we're including the local community, the forums, and driving, making sure that money's being put to good use sooner rather than later. We were keen to get this over the line, so we felt that by putting this forward as an urgent item, it doesn't lead to further delay of after December. So that's why it's here before us this evening. They have all been approved by the Torquay Forum, so I hope members will be supportive. Any debate from around the table with Cabinet members? Councillor Cowell.
Thank you, Chair. And just to clarify, I'm actually Vice Chair of Torquay Neighbourhood Forum, and we've been around this merry-go-round for for 2 or 3 years, and so we're absolutely determined to get the SIL, community SIL element over the line. There's £134,000 of developer contributions sat waiting to be spent on community-led projects that benefit the infrastructure. The proposals before us tonight will allocate 44,000 of that, and the simplified processes that we're hoping to adopt in December with a view to implementing early next year will ensure that we can start speeding up the process of the 90,000 that's remaining, and ensure that there's a speedy process for SIL as it comes in over the coming years. And in terms of Paignton, and I can't remember the figure off the top of my head, the figure of SIL that is sat there waiting to be allocated to community projects is several hundred thousand. I know it's greater than it is in Torquay because that's where much of the development is around parts of Paignton. Just to clarify, the Brixham element of SIL is administered by the Town Council, so they have their own process, and this revised process will reflect the adoption of the Churston, Gampton and Broadsands Neighbourhood Forum that was set up earlier this year. I think what this also really does illustrate is the true value and importance of having neighbourhood plans in place, because the SIL element is actually 25% of the gross SIL contributions from developers, and it puts the voice and the opportunity in the hands of those forums and the communities. So when we're coming to re-adopt neighbourhood plans next year, then I hope people remember that, and by then they may be seeing the fruits of the projects that we're going to approve this evening, I hope. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cowell. So no one else from around the table indicating. So I've had, before the meeting, I had a couple of, well, 3 people saying they wish to speak on these items. So in the following order, we'll go Alan Griffey, Councillor Hazel Foster and Councillor Nick Bye. So Alan, you feel free to make some comments.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank Councillor Foster for letting me know that this meeting was taking place. I just come with a bit of hands-on experience, as it were, because this is the SIL application that I'm referring to is between Babbacombe Theatre and Babbacombe Beach, down through Glen Sannox. I worked on it for many years, strimming the paths and keeping it clear, certainly at the Glen Sannox section, and there was also the council section in the middle and the Carey Arms section at the bottom. But the path did go all the way down. We had help from probationary and other sources, Dartington Skills for Life. We got a £10,000 grant from the lottery fund, and I think it was a great success and everyone thoroughly enjoyed it. And there was myself, John Lawrence, Harold Maunder, Tim Ely, and we all got involved. And then that was the St Mary Church and District Action Group. Then that transferred into becoming the Babbacombe in Bloom, and they then decided to abandon Glen Sannox. I carried on for a while on my own, stripping the area, keeping the paths clear, because visitors did like that, and it gives a safe off-road path down to the beach, which there's even more development down there now, as we know, and it's very important to have that safe off-road path. And certainly it was very popular. However, I come to the great age of 77 this month, and I decided a couple of years ago to stop maintaining it. And I planted a shrub down there, but unfortunately that is overgrown, and the whole area is now overgrown. It's possibly not too far gone that it can be reclaimed, and Tim Ely always said that it was a managed wild area. And if the paths, just the path, was kept trimmed by Swissco, then it would be a great asset, I think, to the holiday aspect of Babbacombe. Thanks very much.
Right, thank you. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add that, I also welcome this report. So my question is around, is there information on the council website where members of the public can see what the criteria is? So if they see something and they wish to make a representation. So it's a question really, where can information be found as to what the criteria is to be able to put in an application?
I understand that this is really through the forum, the Torquay Neighbourhood Planning Forum, that you know, it isn't a council function, although we're helping them discharge it on this occasion. I don't know if Dave Edmondson is able to assist, but it really sits with the Torquay Neighbourhood Forum, how it's, you know, how it's promoted and so forth. Yeah.
Thanks, Chairman. I think we could do a lot more in terms of promotion of this, and we have the challenge at the moment, obviously, of Paignton Neighbourhood Forum and dormancy, and so we are trying to engage with some of the community partnerships there to do that promotion of this pot. So with Kate Spencer and trying to share the information about the other community funds, I think we could do a lot more, and we will do that, because as Councillor Cowell says, there's close on 200,000 within the Paignton patch. So we'll include that as part of the report in December as well. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nick Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I very much hope you and your colleagues will support these proposals. I'm speaking just for a few moments on behalf of the community of Wellswood. We have a very strong community partnership that it's been a great pleasure to work with since 2015. They are endorsing these two proposals. We have two extraordinary groups, and I have to say, if you want to sort of seek inspiration and look for somewhere that is greatly improved in Torquay, not just within the Wellswood ward, these two places have been a tremendous focus of community activity. So you couldn't have two better places to support, two better organisations to support. So the Friends of Stoodley Knoll are a long-established group who've really transformed with the community cafe and the children's play and improved planting and gardens and so on. They've hugely improved Stoodley Knoll, that green area just off Ilsham Road as you go down towards the Kent's Cavern, just beyond the entrance to Kent's Cavern. That is just a wonderful area now to enjoy. So the £2,500, please, for the replacement of the toddler swing will be much appreciated. Lots of children and families come to enjoy that area, not just Wellswood children, but children from other parts of Torquay come over the top, particularly I understand from Ellicombe and Plainmoor and places like that where they don't have similar facilities. So it's not just for the children of Wellswood, it is a much appreciated play area for Torquay youngsters. And then I do want to praise absolutely the Friends of Torwood Coast area, who this year, in a very short time, have transformed the space. And I know, Mr. Leader, Mr. Chairman, you went along and helped save the benches. So well done for you for saving the benches, which have been restored. Signs have gone up. Vegetation has been trimmed back. The beach has now reopened, there's railings, there's a huge amount of community activity. I've participated there each month. In fact, even had a go with a garden rake last week. I've never touched a garden rake in my life before, but I thought everyone else was doing it. I could hardly just stand and watch. So it was just a huge, tremendous group. And Mr. Graham Stevenson, I don't know if I'm breaking GDPR by mentioning him, he must have the Olympic world record for sending emails. He has galvanised. He has galvanised officers and the Coast and Countryside Trust and volunteers and has sort of led us forward and absolutely wants to see these walls restored, these splendid Victorian walls that have sadly fallen into disrepair. So that's the next thing on the list. So you could not have two better places to support, two better organisations to support, and both these groups were nominated in the It's Your Neighbourhood Awards and received recognition just a few weeks ago. So I very much hope that you and your colleagues will give a Christmas present to the good people of Wellswood, who I have the privilege to work with and represent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byatt. Councillor Law, and then we'll probably look to move to the vote.
Yeah, no, I just want to add my support to what's been said here. You do make me smile, Councillor Byatt. And also to thank Alan for the years. I didn't realise it was Alan that's been clearing that path, and it is very much missed by local people. I always think, despite the development, to me, Babbacombe will always be a local beach. It was in my childhood, and it remains so in my heart. And we never walked up the road, those paths and through. And, you know, I used to enjoy trying to race the cars up, go up the path and the car go up the hill. So those days are long over for me. But I really do support these projects, and also would like to add my praise. I was going to mention Graham and the group along the Torwood Coast Path. They have done absolutely sterling work. They work really hard. They're out every week, probably every day actually. Graham goes out and collects, and some real good projects here. So happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you. So, colleagues, it's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you, colleagues. So we now move on to the Torbay, thank you, David, Torbay Economic Strategy. Councillor Long.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And can I say, first of all, that Mr. Griffey doesn't look anything like the 77 that he claims to be. That can't be possible. Can I just mention that Mr. Carl Wired and Mr. Alan Denby are in the room should we need their services this evening. I'm happy to present the draft Economic Growth Strategy 2022 to 2030, which is fresh back from consultation. The current repositioning plan has been delivered for 2 years and was designed as a response to the pandemic. Whilst parts of the current strategy are still valid, a new strategy is needed to tackle Torbay's longer term and underlying challenges, some of which have become more pronounced following the pandemic. This strategy is deliberately designed to be a longer term strategy to tackle the longer term issues facing Torbay's economy. The strategy is also very much evidence-led, and the evidence-based document can be found in Appendix 1 of the report in front of us this evening. Pages 28 and 29 highlight the issues facing Torbay's economy. For example, 27.4% of Torbay's population live in the UK's most deprived areas. Nearly half of the population are over 50, with only 8% aged between 16 and 24. The workforce has decreased by 2% between 2015 and 2020. There are also high levels of part-time work, which affects GV, gross value added figures, and employers find it hard to find people with skills which match what they're looking for. I know, Mr. Chairman, that you had some concerns expressed from the Place Leadership Board that the report before us might be a bit too negative and put off investors, but I think this strategy document does need to highlight the health of the local economy and the challenging conditions and what we need to do to attract investment, and obviously there would be different documents which would be used to help attract investors. However, notwithstanding that, the strategy does also highlight positives in Torbay's economy. For example, photonics and microelectronics are growing strongly. Unemployment remains low and vacancy rates are high. The strategy proposes 4 priorities. Firstly, supporting innovators, entrepreneurs and business owners and ensure that there are conditions for businesses to thrive. The second priority is building on the Bay's economic specialisms, for example, building on the foundations of our existing bread and butter businesses, such as tourism, fishing, and photonics. And I think this is perhaps the most controversial part of our strategy, which has attracted some comment. But I think these our bread and butter businesses do provide employment, and there are growth opportunities for them, as evidenced perhaps by the destination management plan that we passed earlier on this year. The third priority is helping our community reach their economic potential and build an inclusive economy. This would be about skills and also social values such as community wealth building and our work around procurement. Fourthly is maximising the economic value of our natural capital, for example, marine, the marine area, geopark, and a good environment for tech businesses as well. In terms of outcomes for this strategy, there are four highlighted: more full-time jobs being created, reducing the impact of climate change and increasing resilience to it, increased GVA, and improve educational attainment and workforce skills. In terms of consultation, paragraph 1.4 sets out the consultation process with businesses, economic and political stakeholders, and industry. Like other strategies which have been co-designed, the private sector were important in developing this strategy, and were involved from the beginning. The action plan for the strategy will follow once if and when the strategy is passed, hopefully tonight, and that will come to us at Cabinet in January. I would like to propose the motion this evening, if I may, and that is 3.1, that the Torbay Economic Growth Strategy be approved, and 3.2, that subject to 3.1 above, the Torbay Economic Growth Strategy Action Plan be presented to a subsequent Cabinet meeting for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Long. Councillor Cowell, I understand you may wish to second.
I do indeed, Chair, and I think we are in real challenging times, locally and nationally, as we're all well aware, and it's so important that we have a robust strategy to lead us through these troubled times that are ahead, but also to ensure that we're in a position to grow our economy. And I'm just looking at one of the graphs on page 24 of the strategy, which is referring to business survival, and that many of the business startups in Torbay survive for the first year, but by the time the fifth year, the percentage of survival has fallen to 38%. And it's not about just making sure those businesses survive, it's actually trying to create the environment for them to grow, which will actually ensure that they can provide additional jobs. And of course, to allow growth for several businesses, it's overcoming the challenge that we have in Torbay of very limited employment land identified. We all know the challenges that we're facing around our housing provision, and it's important that we ensure that we use our housing, our land that is available, brownfield sites in particular, to good effect. And it's good to see that the groundworks have started at the Edgenswell site, which will facilitate employment space. So there is the other thing for me that came through as part of the consultation was the need to ensure that we're actually developing and growing a strong voice for business in Torbay. We have some really good organisations battling for not to be heard, but to represent Torbay. And we need to be taking that message to government that we need the investment, and this strategy will provide the evidence that is required to be able to support that economic growth. We need to make sure that we're getting town centre regeneration over the line, because that actually increases the opportunity of external investment and to excite and stimulate that private sector inward investment that is so important for Torbay. And clearly, one of the key elements of Torbay's economy is tourism. And as Councillor Long's just referred to, the destination management plan, you know, these strategies don't sit in isolation, and that's what's important, is that they work hand in glove to deliver the goals of all of our strategies. And our overriding priority, and it's always been our strapline since 2019, is to turn the tide on poverty. And this report highlights some of those key areas. And again, Councillor Long referred to the number of wards and areas in Torbay that are amongst the highest for economic poverty in the UK. So totally endorse the strategy. And for me, the most important thing is to turn the words in the strategy into that robust, deliverable action plan. And I look forward to being able to hopefully support that at a subsequent Cabinet meeting, which I think is targeted for January. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. The report has made me actually reflect on, you know, where we'd come over the past three and a half years, and it does give me the impression that perhaps historically Torbay took the approach that it was kind of like build it and they will come, whereas, and kind of like a belief in trickle-down economics, whereas as the administration between the Independents and Liberal Democrats, we've made sure that this is a lot more layered and meaningful, and actually just investing in infrastructure doesn't bring home the economic return that you need to see, particularly when you have deprived communities that need a leg up. And making sure that we've got appropriate support, whether that's through community wealth building, that is extremely important, and driving, you know, actually being our own champions around that, but also an element of this that is extremely important that was missed through the investment zones, if they still exist anymore, is around investing in people. And that is really important. I'm pleased that through this strategy we do have layers of that, because investing in people and allowing people to improve themselves is actually why I'm got into politics, is actually helping people help themselves. And I'm sure many colleagues around the table would echo that, because by driving, whether it's education or adult education or training and skills later in life, that's how people can improve their lives, rather than believing a build it and they will come. And I'm really pleased that this strategy helps define that approach. So, colleagues, any other hands from around the table before I go elsewhere in the room? Lisa?
Councillor Stockman.
Councillor Jackie Stockman?
Thank you, Chair. I must admit, you know, I did read it all the way through, as you would expect me to, but I did actually think that the executive summary was a very good part of it. Obviously, one of the most important things, as it states, is better paid jobs. For me, followed by homes that are either affordable to buy or rent, or and affordable to run. And that's, as we move forward, is something we need to hold in mind. Like many others, I think I would have liked to have seen the action plan or delivery plan alongside of the strategy, but that's just my personal preference. That's what I like to see. I think it is hugely important that we know, I think everyone in the room knows the issues we have, but nevertheless, Torbay is still a great place to live and to work. And so it's really important that we put that positive environment in place. When you have a vibrant communities and a good outlook and positive vision, that does bring in investment. Recently, I've had a member of my family gone to South Devon College to look at what she might do in the future. And the course there in relation to adult social care, which is what she's thinking of doing, is an excellent course, which means that she goes out into the community one day a week, as well as doing the academic side, and if she wishes to continue, that counts as part of a degree. And so already we're seeing those partnerships that are building within the college, you know, and other partners to see different things delivered. So some of the evidence within this strategy is actually 2 years out of date. And so the picture for the fishing industry actually has changed for the better. Last year was the best year ever at a value of 43.5 million, and employees have actually gone up from 44 to 73. That's since this was actually done. So there are a lot of positives, you know, happening in the Bay. I'm not a person that says that you should ignore the negatives, but I do think you should accentuate the positives and eliminate the negatives, you know. And so I think this is a really good start. Like I said, I look forward to seeing the action/delivery plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Cordelia Law.
Thank you. Yeah, I think actually a lot of what I was going to say has actually been covered. Like everybody, I look forward to that action plan. That's kind of like the meat on the bones. I really welcome, though, the bits in this that talk about our young people and about promoting apprenticeships. I think it's really important. Not many people seem to know that you can actually take an apprenticeship to degree level these days. And it's great to see that within this strategy, because it's our young people are going to be the ones that will benefit the most from the period of this strategy. I think we have some statistics in this that we can be proud of. We have 4.5% of our young people are not in education, employment and training, whereas the national average is 5.5%. So we have more of our young people in educational training than our national average. That's something to be proud of. Also talks about more closer working between employers and places of education, and I think that's another really important aspect that's captured within this. I think too often when we write documents, particularly about the economy, we forget the people that are coming up through that maybe are not currently contributing to the economy, but will be, hopefully, I live in hope with my children, will start supporting me very, very soon. So, but I also think there's a huge amount of really, really interesting statistics in this. For example, 9% of people don't have any qualifications. That's really sad, because qualifications, learning is a gateway to the world, and I think that we can do more around that sort of thing. And upside down here, I have also got written down about maximising the area that maximises on our natural capital. That's free for us, you know. And I would urge all of you to take a look at our Torbay Champions event that was held at South Devon College recently, and listen to Nick Pope talk about talk about our natural capital and actually what being a geopark actually means. And I don't think we do enough to capitalise on this. And the other thing I'd like to say is around the employment in tourism. 1/3 of people are employed in tourism, and over 80% in the service sectors in Torbay, which is then often reflected in our statistics around part-time and full-time work that within this, that some people see as a negative, but I think actually that reflects in part the labour market within Torbay. There's a lot of criticism around, I have heard criticism around the emphasis given in this to the tourism industry, but actually 1/3 of our local population works in it. I remember, I'm going to give my age away now maybe, but I remember when we were, you know, South Devon College was the place to study for hotel, hospitality and catering, and I know that the college are doing an awful lot to rebuild and reposition themselves there. I think it's a wonderful career. I know young people that have actually chosen to go into this career, and it's very sad that unlike in Europe where you can actually go to university and train in hospitality, in Britain you have to go and do a degree and then get postgraduate training through one of the large companies. But it is a really good, it's a job that will train here in Torbay. You know, you could work for life in Torbay in it. And we have a lot of new hotels that have been built, so we are going to need the people to run those. And so I think it's really important that focus in that. And I think we need to stop putting tourism down and start celebrating it as one of our core industries. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Do we have any other hands from around the table, please, Lisa, or elsewhere in the room?
So nobody from your table, Chair. However, you've got Councillor Bye and Councillor Barron.
Okay, Councillor Bye, please do come in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've all been getting on so well this evening, and I don't want now to upset everyone, but young people are voting with their feet. If you read through the report, the figures could not be more stunning. So the issue that we have in the Bay is that young people are moving away once they get into their late teenage, 20s, 30s, 40s. Our population now is 50%, give or take a fraction of a point. 50% of Torbay's population is now aged 50 or older. Our working age population contracts. Those who stay sadly tend to be those who are less skilled or less qualified. Councillor Law highlighted from this report that 9% of our working age population, 9% of our workforce, have no qualifications whatsoever. You know, it could not be worse. And the argument, I'm sorry, is this strategy that you're seeking to prove, is it sufficiently bold? And I don't believe that it is. It's interesting that you referred around the table, there's been reference to those in the business community and others perhaps who've come along and said, you know, should we be pushing same old in terms of tourism and perhaps fishing? Put yourselves in the mind, a frame of mind of a bright teenager, someone in your early 20s perhaps with a degree. Is there anything in this that is honestly going to make you want to stay and make your future in Torbay? And I've read through this and sadly not. It's same old, same old. Would I hang around again now? Would I hang around for tourism or to go on a trawler if that's what the offer is, if that's what the expansion is intended to be? I doubt that I would. You know, with all due respect, I'm going to blow my own trumpet. You know, during my term as mayor, we had the new fish quay, we had the relocation and expansion of South Devon College, we had the Edgenswell Business Park with nearly 1,000 jobs, the Sea Change projects, the employment units at Lymington Road, shortly after the South Devon Link Road, the first of the new hotels, the Travia Lodge and the Premier Inns. But we still haven't done enough to grow our economy. It seems, if you look at the report, our economy in the Bay has only grown 10% over the last 10 years. The UK economy is supposed to have grown, it seems slightly optimistic figure, by 40%. It's the demography. That's what the report says. That's actually what the report says. 10% growth of our economy in Torbay over the last 10 years. Nationally, in this report, it says 40% over 10 years. That's from the report. I would question that 40%. But where GVA, the value of employment, the value of our economy in the Bay is falling further and further behind. And this report, I'm sorry, this strategy doesn't seem bold enough. The overview and scrutiny made reference to having a kind of golden thread that you should be linking this strategy with the housing strategy and the local plan. It doesn't do that. I'm astonished how little reference there is to housing and housing need. If you don't provide housing for people, you're not going to keep the youngsters, you're not going to encourage the investment. So I'm sorry to say, Mr. Chairman, we've had a good start tonight, but on this, you've got to do better.
Well, Councillor Bye, I'm not going to sit here and be lectured by you when your colleagues stripped out the housing offer in Torbay, and that is the reality, is that the officers who delivered housing were stripped out by the mayor who we succeeded. The reality is that the government nationally have been failing to drive growth significantly, and then we look at the disastrous Liz Truss premiership that you supported by being a Conservative, and that's cost us £30 billion thanks to your Conservative Party. So please don't stand on the sidelines and carpet us. The reality is we have had challenging times with the pandemic, with Brexit, with the war in Ukraine, and yet we're trying to drive positive change here in Torbay despite the national government. Councillor Barron, I'm sure you'll be wanting to give some positive feedback for us this afternoon.
Oh, thank you, Chairman, and I will try to be, should we say, a little bit humbly, perhaps. Maybe I'll get my ears bent when I get outside. Chairman, I really wanted just to really sort of welcome the ambition of this strategy. Whether it should be stronger and more bolder, I will leave others to decide, should we say. But I'm going to be a little bit selfish and refer to item 2.3, where it refers to the vibrant arts and cultural offer for our residents and visitors to enjoy. So I don't think you'll be surprised for me to say to the old chestnut, should we say. I very much enjoyed welcoming Councillor Long to Cockington, where we showed him around vibrant arts and cultural amenities. Some of those were very new start-up art studios. So anything that helps drive footfall and increase trade to my dear old Cockington, which is referred to in vibrant arts and culture, I think is overflowing with it. So anything that helps to improve that, Councillor Long, I hope that we can visit again and visit those businesses where there will be some positive feedback from what they appreciated from this ambition within this strategy. That's it from me, Chairman. I hope that...
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barron.
Thank you.
So, Councillor Long, I'll come back to you to summate before we go to the vote.
Okay. Is that now or later?
Now.
Now, excellent. Lovely, thanks very much indeed. I'll come to Councillor Barron's positivity in a moment, but I just wanted to respond to Councillor Bye's same old, same old. It's just interesting that when we did start something different and were wanting to use our Torbay Growth Fund to attract a business to the EPIC building, Councillor Bye's group were arguing to not to do it. And that we shouldn't do it, and we have done it, and there are now highly paid jobs in EPIC as a result of that, which is doing very, very well indeed. And I think part of the attraction for that company to come, as well as the Economic Growth Fund, was the natural capital that Councillor Stockman and Councillor Law referred to. And we need to use more of that as part of the offer for Torbay, which is something different. The same old tourism that was referred to, if Councillor Bye had also read the destination management plan in conjunction with this report, we aren't just wanting tourism to do what they've always been doing. It's all about making tourism an all year round offer, so it can be an actual career for people and not just a seasonal job. And that's where places like the Premier Inn come into it. And we're building on things like more employment space at the coach station, etc. So we are doing different things and not just the same old, same old. And in terms of Cockington, yes, and we're doing some of the basics for that and hoping to get the bus route 7-day-a-week, Touchwood, and other things as well for that. So all good. Thank you.
Colleagues, it's been proposed and second. All those in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you, colleagues. So we now move on to the sports pitch strategy. Councillor Morey, I don't know whether the gestation for a blue whale or this strategy has taken longer, but perhaps you can enlighten us.
Thank you for that introduction, Chairman. This report is basically asking the Cabinet to approve that the playing pitch strategy does go out to consultation so that can inform the emerging sports strategy, as it were. There is and I'll just to say that somebody didn't pick up on it, there is a revised recommendation, and that is, I'll read it all out, it's not going to take very long, Lisa. So it reads now, subject to the following action being removed from the Appendix 3 Torbay Playing Pitch Strategy Action Plan, Section D, list of sites, Broadsands, Justin and Campden Neighbourhood Plan Area removed, and that the playing pitch strategy be launched for consultation in order that it can inform the emerging sports strategy. Chair, as we all only too aware that over the years, Torbay Council has not recognised sport and the benefits of playing sport as a worthy of its consideration. I was around in the 1990s when I saw the document called Pitching It Right, commissioned by the council. That document was actually put on the shelf to gather dust, or probably only taken down to wait the doors closed in this drafty town hall. This administration, though, did recognise the benefits of sport to the communities, so it has raised the importance of sport to a high on its priority list and commissioned a new important piece of work, which is namely the playing pitch strategy. A playing pitch strategy plays a number of important roles of sport, leisure and planning terms, also has a direct link to health and well-being agenda, both in relation to the formal club-based sport, but also in social, casual and informal sport, aimed at getting people more active with positive outcomes for mental as well as physical health. Playing pitch strategy will play a vital role in encouraging increased sporting activity and promoting health and well-being in Torbay by helping to ensure that there is a good supply of high-quality playing pitch facilities to meet the current and future needs of the area's residents. Torbay Council, as a major sports facility owner, motivator and manager, will play a key role in the delivery of this strategy. At its basic level, the strategy provides an audit of the quality, quantity and accessibility of playing pitches, establishes the level of demand and therefore whether playing pitches are over or underutilised. The project's forward demand likely to arise by the end of the strategic period of 2040. Torbay Local Plan, adopted in 2015, runs to 2030. The Council is in the early stages of consulting on the plan, update to this plan. It is agreed that the Torbay PPS will be a forward-looking scenario to 2040 to ensure facilities and land are safeguarded if likely to be required. This playing pitch strategy focuses on the main playing pitch sports of football, I say soccer, but that upsets Councillor Cowell, cricket, rugby union and hockey, and also the demand for outdoor tennis, bowls and netball. Within this context, grass and artificial pitch surfaces have been considered. The assessment has also explored options for athletics and archery amongst these other sports, given the potential relationship between facilities used by these sports and sites used by the main pitch sports. This playing pitch strategy has been in the making for months. It has taken this time as there have been thorough consultations with local clubs, national sporting bodies and with Sporting England, not just once, but at regular times throughout the process. This is not another piece of work to gather dust on the shelf in some cupboard somewhere, so we have already agreed to take this strategy forward following approval, eventual approval by the Cabinet, hopefully. Delivery of the strategy and recommendations will be the responsibility of various bodies such as Torbay Council, sports governing bodies and Sport England, and other key stakeholders such as clubs, providers, owners and managers of pitches. Chairman, I could go on and on and on, but I'm conscious of the time. So at the end of the Chairman, there has been an urgent need to review sport, to put it higher on the agenda, and not only have the strategy, but have the guts to actually implement that as and when appropriate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Morey, for that thorough introduction to this item. I'm very happy to second, and just very briefly I will say that, you know, my experience from the position on the council that I am is it's actually all about how you can work in partnership with others and work with the community. And that's what I'm hoping that this sports strategy, or planning that this sports strategy will achieve for us, is giving that firm foundation to work in partnership with others so that we can drive the change that we need to see for the virulent Torbay that we want to see. Thank you. Councillor Cowell, I understand that you may wish to also speak on this particular item.
You would be surprised if I didn't, Chair, because having been a member of Torbay Sports Council, which was then replaced by Sports Torbay, I've seen the deterioration in sporting facilities in Torbay over several years, and it's regrettable that previous administrations have failed to grasp the nettle and actually invest in our sports infrastructure. And I recognise that there's been challenging times, but I recall a conversation I had, I think it was the first year I was on the council, and a senior Conservative councillor, when we were talking about budget challenges, actually said to me that sport is a luxury we cannot afford. I think that shows a total lack of awareness of the absolute value, as Councillor Morey's already alluded to, in terms of the social and health and well-being and contribution to mental health that sport and physical activity actually brings to the table. We've seen our sports facilities in Torbay deteriorate. Our changing facilities, in most cases, are quite simply embarrassingly appalling. And the one thing I'm really keen about in terms of this the playing pitch strategy, because it does identify the audit of facilities as much as the delivery of sport itself. You can't deliver sport unless you've got the kind of facilities that sports activists want to go and get changed in or to utilise. And if you look at some of the facilities that we've had, we ended up having to demolish, because of the arson, Tor Valley North changing rooms. But then, to be honest, they were almost falling down anyway, and you could go to several other sites across Torbay where, if somebody pointed out to me earlier today that people will go to a gym or even their school changing facilities, and their facilities are top-notch. And then we then expect them to go and play their sport in poor conditions in terms of changing facilities and the facilities that they play on. Councillor Stockman will be delighted to note that there is an action plan attached to this strategy, as I am. And I think it is so important that we have that strategy that feeds in, because these strategies are actually effectively a blueprint laid down by Sport England and other national governing bodies. They expect us to have a playing pitch strategy in place to inform the funding decisions, that we're not going to just pepper pot funding, but we're actually going to do it in a strategic way, such as the Valley of Sport through from Torquay Seafront right the way up to Cockington School, Clenham Valley, the sports hub at up at the top of Hill and Windmill Hill and Barton Downs, and the sports facilities in Brixham. There's no part of Torbay that isn't untouched by the possibilities of being able to gain investment from national governing bodies such as Sports England, the cricket authorities, rugby, the RFU, and of course the FA. So I'm absolutely delighted that we are now at a stage of consulting on the actual strategy. None of this will come as a surprise to the sports clubs, because, as Councillor Morey said, they've already been heavily engaged in this process, and along with Sport Torbay and other sports bodies across the Bay, in partnership with the council, I really hope we can make a significant improvement to the infrastructure of sport during this strategy period up to 2040. Thank you, Chair.
So I've got Councillor Stockman, and any other hands after Stockman from around the table. Please do come in, Jackie.
Thank you, Chair. I won't say too much, because obviously this is going out to consultation, so we're not actually discussing the adoption of it per se. But just reading through it, the things that struck me were that one of the most important things is that we have sustainable locations where accessibility is easy and cost to travel there is low. Because if you know anything about the equalising of sport is that we want children and young people from every walk of life to be able to access sport, because sport, as has been said by the two previous speakers, it's very good for socialisation, it's fantastic for mental health, it's good for keeping you fit and well, and that's what you need, fit and well people that are going to go on into decent jobs and be able to live in an area that they love and they've been brought up in. So I'd just like to plug for archery. I must just plug for archery. If you've never been to archery, please do go, because the one thing you know about archery is any ability or anyone that's actually in a wheelchair or unable is able to take part in archery. And, you know, I've been lucky enough to have, you know, been at an event where I was presenting the awards, and just to see people able to do archery, and it's really important that they get the both the inward and the indoor and the outdoor permanent venues, because they get pushed around as we build and, you know, and develop. They get pushed around. So sport's fantastic. It's inclusive, and you will often find that those that get to an age where they no longer do sport, they're the ones that coach and help the youngsters through for little or no recognition. And working with our partners, it can go very well. I mean, we've had Brixham Football Academy open in North Boundary Road at the John Charles ground, which was named after a former coach who still goes up there in his 80s. And there are literally hundreds of young people there, both male and female, and it's really working well. So I'm hoping that we'll get good responses from the consultation and we can push on with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. I'm afraid the only archers I engage with are on a Sunday morning. But I have Councillor Barrand and Councillor Nick Bye. Councillor Barrand?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to say, add to my pleasure of seeing this report, particularly the Torquay Neighbourhood Plan, and in particular Tor Valley North and Tor Valley South. I visited the facilities, or lack of facilities it may be, or burnt out shell of the remains of them, with Councillor Cowell a while ago now, actually. That long ago. Doesn't time fly when you're having fun. Neighbours and parents have been talking to me about the facilities there for a very long time. Different reasons. Tor Valley North is as was indicated, the clubhouse was constantly being vandalised. Where it was placed, it was a little sort of out of the way place, and kids were doing their worst at it. So hopefully, off this plan, it does actually say consider relocating the site. So, and there was also that healthy competition between cricket, rugby, and athletics. And it was pointed out to me by the athletics member that there wasn't any real athletic facilities within the bay, and they had to go further afield, maybe Newton Abbot, Exeter, wherever. So this is really very pleasing to see this in the report, and that I can report back to my residents and constituents that it's in the plan, and although it has been demolished, so there is hope there that it was actually something was happening. But tonight, to see it in black and white will be very good to reiterate to the residents that sports has been taken seriously, and that these upgrades of all those sports will be coming through. I could just finally say about the archery. I have actually met with the chairman of the archery club, who was based at a school but was having to move away, and they're looking for other facilities. And it was amazing. He was saying that it's a sport that there's actually a waiting list on. So, and it is a little maybe underrepresented archery. Everyone thinks about rugby, cricket. If you don't have to look at Jim Parker's pages every week. So archery is getting the recognition it deserves and needs. So I'm very pleased to see that, and I'm sure that again that the members of that club will be great to see that they can plan for the future with the ambition of what we've proved in this document. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Bye, and then I have Councillor Long after that. Nick, please do come in. Long.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, Long.
Thank you so much. When I finish speaking, I'm actually going to have to go, so that was going to seem incredibly rude. but I apologise, I've just got to be somewhere, but there we go. And I'm going to try and say a few things, frankly, as I always do, without causing the upset that my contribution on the earlier item did. What I'd like to get a better understanding is that this is a sports playing pitch strategy. So the focus is on principally the traditional team sports, although interesting comments from Councillor Barron following on from Councillor Stockman about archery and mention also of athletics. What I'd like to have a better understanding, it will seem incredibly rude not to stay and wait for the answer, is where you fit in with general increasing participation and wider sports. Because I looked at some length yesterday when it was just so awful to go out and see the Sports England's statistics on participation in traditional team sports. And they are in far steeper and greater decline and significantly smaller numbers of people involved in some of these sports than I had imagined. I mean, I'm not a sports expert, but nationally in hockey, there's thought to be no more than just 100,000 people in the whole country participating in hockey. Follows on a bit from what we were talking about with the age profile of the population, our working age population shrinking in the Bay. Those who do work in hospitality, tourism, health and social care. So the difficulty in organising a game of cricket or a game of rugby or football with our age population and the way people work in the Bay is incredibly difficult. So I would like to have some better idea of where this fits with the overall efforts. Our Director of Public Health absolutely sat with me to try and get people more active, more fit and participating in physical activity. You knock the previous administrations and that's what it's all about, I understand that. But we did invest, or previous administration, I wasn't a part of it, invested in the Velo Park over in Paignton, and the number of people who cycle now is vastly more than the number of people who play football. The number of people who play football is more than all the other traditional sports put together. So it's things like cycling, that is absolutely number one. In the Bay, there's an awful lot more swimming. There was investment in the Admiral Pool in Brixham, and there's a lot of private sector investment in swimming pools in hotels. Our Riviera Centre is basically calling it the International Conference Centre. It's a glorified gym. The last time I went in there, it's been basically remodeled to become a gym, and that's replicated in other locations across the Bay. A lot more people, friends, go to gym and fitness. I can't think of any friends who play football, cricket, rugby. Maybe all my friends are strange, I don't know, but that I think is the future. So where does this fit? It seems a very traditional approach to sport. A lot of you have actually spoken as though this is sport, whereas it's just a playing pitch strategy. Where does it fit in our overall strategy of increasing participation in things like swimming, encouraging people to go to the gym, cycling, running, all those activities that have become more popular as traditional team sports have declined? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I'm come to Mike at the end to summate, and I don't know if you want Alan to join us to reflect on before we go to the vote to assist us with some of those questions, Mike. But I'll go to Cordelia first, and then Alan, if you want to join us.
I was just going to remind everybody this is a playing pitch strategy, so some of the sports mentioned don't require you to have a playing pitch. But actually, I just wanted to come back in and say I do actually have a bow with several arrows, and I'm welcome to come and play or bring it along with me next cabinet, and we can all try it out if you like. I also have some movable, fixable targets for the backs of your jackets, but I don't have blunt arrows, only real ones. Thank you.
Why does this not surprise us, Cordelia? So, Councillor Long, before you run from the room screaming.
It was just to say that it's a shame Councillor Byers not staying for the next item as well, because I think there might be a golden thread between what he was wanting in this strategy and the next item. Thank you.
Sorry, I'd hope that we'd be looking at more golden ropes to give us more leverage on things. Councillor Cowell, and then we'll go to Alan for any reflections before we go to Mike, and then look to go to the vote.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I think that there is a recognition in the report that team team sports have declined. And there's a whole variety of reasons for that. It's not just a Torbay phenomena, it's a national issue, and it's one that the national governing bodies and the FA are working hard to address. And in terms of cricket, for example, I mean, the forms of cricket, from the 100, the 2020, the 50-over game, right the way up to international test cricket. There's been huge moves away from the traditional 3 or 5 day test match. And I know from my involvement of being at Torquay Cricket Club or Barton, what happens now is that that age group, that demographic, don't want to travel all the way to North Devon and spend a day, mainly because quite often their partners don't expect them to be away all day. So same with football. People don't travel for miles playing football. They would rather go to a decent facility and play for 30 minutes a five-a-side game. So the nature of sport has changed. And it may well be that the reason that a lot of our age group aren't participating actively in field sports is because they are of that age group. But the people that I know who are of a younger age group still are very much participating in sport. But in terms of that general point, and I'm sure Lincoln would back this up as well, the amount of money that this administration has identified for that, if you like, that casual, informal kind of sport and leisure, sport and leisure activity around the health and wellbeing agenda has been significant in the last 3 years, far more than has been invested in the previous several years. So there is a recognition about the need for that informal kind of sport and activity, but it doesn't fit within the blueprint of the playing pitch strategy that, as I said when I was seconding, is laid down by the national governing bodies and Sport England in particular. It follows a prescribed pattern. And I see Kevin Merritt is nodding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Alan, do you have any reflections on the debate so far before we go to Mike?
I think I'm slightly discomforted by the number of members who have got ranged, sharp weapons that could be brought into the chamber at any point. I think the points that have been made and Councillor By's comments in terms of participation is absolutely one which we need to understand, and we need to work through that wider approach around the sport strategy. So this playing pitch strategy sitting alongside resetting sport and Torbay on the move. How do we work with Sport Torbay to make sure that the capability within those clubs is there? Because it's not simply the facilities that people want, especially with for those of us that have got younger children who are involved with young sport. You want to make sure they're going into a good environment in terms of coaching and safeguarding and making sure that the infrastructure for sport in its broader sense is there to match anything that we can do around improved facilities is an important part of what we need to do. And then there is probably something there about that marketing of the approach, but Councillor Cowell's comments about what is happening in the wider areas of society. We're in a competitive space. Every club is in a competitive space, so we need to help them by finding ways in which we can get the right investment into those key sites within the Bay that's going to encourage participation and then prolong participation as late in life. And I'm sure that Lincoln would set out in terms of the statistics and the figures that we see for public health, that participation and prolonging healthy life as long as we're able to, and from an economic perspective, longer working life, healthy working life is really important for the Bay's economic success.
Thank you, Alan. Mike, do you have anything to reflect on before we go to the vote?
Yeah, only a few comments which I accept are issues as well. Obviously, we've been trying to work with the two archery clubs to find them a permanent home. It has been extremely difficult because we don't own sufficient land big enough for that sort of sport. But we have been trying. Nick's gone now, but as I said at the introduction, this is a strategy that pitch strategy that links into an overall sports strategy which will come about. I accept some sports are reducing. I mean, I can remember the days when soccer used to have Sunday pub leagues and things. That's gone by the board now, unfortunately. So there's various things like that. I agree with Jackie. We need to support the John Charles pitch being parochial. We need to ensure that it gets through the planning process, though I shouldn't say that, I will do. And then finally, Chairman, if Councillor Cowell looks to page 160 of the report, he will see a lovely photograph of Brixton Rugby Club. Okay, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so colleagues, it's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. We now move on to the Healthy Behaviour Service Contract Award. Councillor Stockman, I understand that you're introducing this one.
Thank you, Chair. So I've done a sort of précis of the report. So Healthy Behaviour Services, better known as Lifestyles to us. The current services are delivered by the Torbay and South Devon Foundation Trust. This contract comes to an end in March next year. Therefore, we've gone out to tender for these services. We need to award the contract by the end of this month in order that it may be implemented by April 2023. Procurement has been undertaken for the new contract, which is for a 3-year plus 1-term optional extension. The highest scoring bidder at the completion of the tender evaluation is set out in Exempt Appendix 1. So the recommendation is to award the Healthy Behaviour Service contract as set out in Exempt Appendix 2, which is stated on page 233 of the report. The successful bidder will deliver adult weight management, smoking cessation, health coaching, including some advice on alcohol consumption, emotional health and well-being, and oral health, and delivery of mental health training, such as Making Every Contact Count and Connect 5. There will be an increased effort made to support adults aged 18 plus to access help for the population groups who experience health inequalities. We have statutory responsibilities under the Health and Social Care Act 2012 to improve the health of the local population. The contract will be funded through the Public Health Ring Fence Grant. I put Ring Friend Grant instead of Fence Grant. Although we are not able to name who the contract is to be awarded to, I believe that they have a proven record in providing excellent services, and this came out during my briefing. You would expect me to have asked questions, so I was satisfied with them, but obviously everything is laid out in the exempt reports you've had a chance to read. We can't speak in what's the word? We can't identify anyone because obviously it can't go into the public domain at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Long, do you wish to second?
I do wish to second. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to second the award of this contract. The Torbay Health Behaviour Contract delivers a number of health programmes, including alcohol consumption, and the link to what Councillor Barr was talking about, physical activity and weight management. As section 1.6 of the report outlines, these health issues are often affect deprived areas the most, I was pleased to see that this report acknowledges this, and deprived areas are a focus of the work that's going to be done. So I know that in the statistics, I know that our ward, Mr. Chairman, is often affected with obesity, for example. So I'm more than happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Lisa, do we have any debate from around the table?
Nobody's indicated, Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a question that it'll be interesting to know if you know the answer. I'm afraid I should have warned you in advance, Jackie. So it might be that you need to call a friend with Lincoln. Good. So it was just, where do you draw the line between having nutritionists and dietitians in delivering help drive weight loss? No, dear, it's the alcohol. Anyway, so Jackie, are you alive to that, or shall we call a friend and go to Lincoln? Right. Lincoln, I had a member of the public who, I think she comes from a dietitian background, strangely enough, when I shared that this was coming up, and she was concerned that, you know, nutritionists and dietitians are different beasts, and how do we make sure that we're giving a quality service to those who are looking at weight loss? Do we rely heavily on nutritionists, or do we lean more on the expertise of dietitians?
Thanks so much for a really good question. So to some extent, I think a bit of background to link in with the last discussion. Very often when you look at weight management, you think of tiers, and to some extent we looked at tier 1 was the kind of general what's available to people without any particular specialist input. So your gyms, your playing pitch, your joining in, your cycling, all of that. There will be individuals who are particularly at risk because of overweight, for example, where they need a structured program, usually time limited. A lot of these programs are about 12 weeks, where you work with professionals, but these are lower level professionals. So you would, this service would then support people on getting onto a weight management program, which would include physical activity, but also diet. Typically, you wouldn't get involved. Dietitians are kind of the specialist practitioners. Yeah? Nutritionists are kind of the scientists. So you kind of think psychiatry versus psychology is probably a reasonable analogy to that. That's the next tier up, where you have people, for example, who need more intensive support, and that often includes psychological support as well. And then tier 4 is typically where you have surgery, bariatric surgery, banding, gastric banding, those kinds of stuff. So if you think of that, it begins to show you where those tiers might work. And the funding for those pathways is different. I'm not as much aware of how that funding works seamlessly in Torbay, but certainly the NHS is responsible for tier 3, tier 4. We are responsible for tiers 1 and 2 because we're a unitary. We have in Torbay an integrated health and well-being service, which includes stop smoking, in addition to weight management, emotional support as well, because very often these factors come together, and the way that the service works is that it will work with individuals in setting that menu of interventions and to support them to deal with what particular challenges are creating most risk to them. And you know, so some people may choose to engage on multiple outcomes through the service, for example. But typically, it is a short-term focused program which then helps that person to then connect with other things to maintain that weight loss, if that's the primary issue, to remain, if they smoke, to remain not smoking. If there's an alcohol problem, this is not people who have an addiction problem, but kind of cutting down your alcohol intake. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Lincoln. Any other questions before we go back to the vote? No, Lisa?
Nobody's indicated.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Thank you so much, Lincoln. All those in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Okay, colleagues, and then we have one item for noting, which is urgent decision by the Chief Executive, which is just for noting. Sorry, Darren, do come in.
Yeah, just the reason for urgency stated, I think maybe missing a word, which is in the best interests, just for accuracy.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
I'm turning into Robert Loxton.
So, colleagues, it has no need to vote on it, it's just for noting. So that includes our time together this evening. Thank you, everyone.